I've probably tried things that would offend everybody. Hi everyone, this is Avanti Nagral, and I'm having Tiffin with Saffron Creative House. I have always believed in the power of community and never thought that it would extend to the digital world. I graduated college during the pandemic and had plans to do the performing and public speaking worlds full-time. And obviously they came crashing down. I saw that a lot of people during this crazy time in the world were turning to the internet as a space of comfort, community, and knowledge. Starting on YouTube was way scarier than speaking in front of 10,000 people, because I think you sometimes are your most vulnerable self in front of a camera. It was a scary start, but I'm so grateful. Yes and no. Well, it's really good. Because I didn't grow up on the internet, I didn't have a sense of what YouTube was like, that world was like, or what being a YouTuber meant. Didn't know what social media was or how people engaged with it. And I very much was like, oh, the same way in which you talk to someone on a stage or you give a lecture, you can do the same thing online, and the answer is absolutely not. What I like to call this triangle, the inspiration, aspiration, relatability triangle. They want one of the above, or ideally all. And that only comes from you feeling comfortable sharing a part of yourself, a part of something that inspires you or that you enjoy doing in a real and authentic way, as opposed to how you would present yourself in any other situation. I'm very specific about my food tastes, which is why this is absolutely incredible. I absolutely love idli. I love dosa. I love peaches. If I had to choose a comfort food, it would be macaroni and cheese. Food is comfort, but food is culture. And it says a lot about taste and where somebody is from. You are what you put inside of your body. You are what you watch. You are what you consume. And therefore, I like trying foods from all different types of places that give me comfort. Okay. Thank you, purple hand. And thank you, red hand. Okay, bear with me. This is a coconut macaroon. This is curd rice. Those are flavors that I think are complementary, so I'm going to try them together. To answer your question, this is a representation of my family in some sense, because my family grew up in very different parts of the world, from very different parts of India. You can kind of trace like a north to south line with the parts of the world, with the parts of the country that my family's from. All my grandparents were doctors. They all met in medical school. It was kind of cool to see, firstly, a generation of women who were supported by their families to be educated and working in spaces that previous generations didn't have access to. Secondly, just to see so many different subcultures at home. For myself, as somebody who additionally also grew up between countries, I think the concept of home became more fluid. I found borders to be a very strange concept. As an older sister, I have always felt a need to want to share things with other people, protect them from experiences I've dealt with. But I think when I first started writing music as if it were to a younger version of myself, that's when I think it felt really vulnerable. And I'm somebody who cares a lot about people, and you know, when you are someone who cares about people, your relationships with people tend to be very deep and all-encompassing. So whether that's with a friend or with a parent or with a partner, I think when I felt turmoil in all of those spaces is when I felt really vulnerable and always really compelled to write. Balanced meal. We now have vegetables. They're vegetables because it's tomato soup. I think soup is such an underrated food item. It's just warm and comforting and nourishing, so I'm team soup. It's called paper cuts. And It was basically about like somebody being toxic, but it's like, you give me paper cuts because of your love, or some ridiculousness like that. It was really fun to write though. Oh my god, I hoarded so much stationery as a kid. I have like glitter pens from when I was 10, and I'm fully turning 27. I still use them. I also hoard, like I keep all birthday cards and anything, any memento that someone has, like I have little treasure boxes that anyone has ever given me. I feel like there's just something about the energy that someone has when they write something like that that's meaningful that almost transfers to you when you hold the paper. My grandma's amazing. All my grandparents were. I think my two grandmas in particular. One passed away when I was in college, but the one that the internet sees, I've had the opportunity to get much closer to over the last couple of years. Her husband, my grandfather, passed away at the beginning of COVID. And so to make sure she wasn't as lonely, we wanted to make sure that she was engaged in many different ways. Every week we would watch a movie together. She would choose really interesting movies that would have themes like drug abuse or have Game of Thrones references. I was able to have conversations with her in a way that made me realize the beautiful human she is, and not just the grandparental role she plays in my life. And we talk very openly about things like sex and sex education, consent, periods, objectification. The first ever video I made with her was her reacting to the music videos of WAP and Anaconda. What I thought would be just an interesting conversation, or just a meme for me to laugh at later, was a really interesting dissection of like her idea of the male gaze and the female body, and she was like, there's nothing wrong with this. So, you know, you're a 91-year-old Aji wearing a sari, saying that is kind of awesome. So it was this reality TV show called Banana Sunday that I randomly ended up on. It just showed me how much language matters. I've done a lot of work in the global health space. The easiest way to connect was to do an activity or to share an art form, and often that would end up with me singing and us all singing together. And it was one thing to sing a song in English, right, or a song even in Hindi for that matter. It was another thing to sing something that meant something. Seeing that made me just really interested in knowing that in this lifetime I cannot possibly learn 100 different languages, but I can try to learn to sing in 100 different languages. Last year I decided to formulate a challenge for myself to sing 50 different songs in 50 different weeks in 50 different languages, and it's been an incredible learning experience. I think initially the hardest language was Tamil, because it was an Indian language I was not familiar with at all. Kokborok was really difficult. It's a language from Tripura. And I would say among global languages, Haitian Creole was interestingly difficult, because it's so similar to French, but it's not French at all. So you have to be very careful about how you balance the two. I love how interdependent and community-driven it is. I wish to change how that community can sometimes be so nosy they get into each other's business all the time and don't let people live. I wrote So It Begins last year, and I wrote it the year before, and to me, it just represented cyclical change. It's beautiful and bittersweet and nostalgic to sometimes recognize that you're saying goodbye to a version of yourself or a version of somebody else, and that change is all that's going to exist. So the song is very, honestly, it's very bittersweet, because it's framed from talking to a person and saying, hey, I don't know if we're fate, but all I know is that I'm going to give this my best, right? But the idea behind creating a production company was to have an umbrella of the work that we want to create with our brand, the work that we want to help support with other people, and just to create socially conscious media and whatever that looks like. Thank you for the faluda. I know this looks gross, but this reminds me of the first time I ever mixed food. And unfortunately, it was for a guy. I was 8. I had a crush on this guy in my class, this Greek guy named Danny. And Danny really liked yogurt. In fact, pink yogurt, kind of like Faluda. And I just thought it would be really cool to impress him by mixing that yogurt with my water and drinking it in front of him. And I did that, and he was impressed, because it doesn't take much to impress a 6-year-old boy. How many more questions do you have? And if you want me to be super rapid, I can do that. Future. Espresso by Sabrina Carpenter. Tori Kelly. Dogs. Wish I could get over it. I've probably tried things that would offend everybody. Food combination that's a classic in my family that people find weird is paratha and honey. Like every movie I've ever watched. I think I watched Lapata Ladies recently, and it was beautiful.
Okay, yay! Good job.
Do you have like a closing outro or something? This was Avanti eating Tiffin with Saffron Creative House.